I'm speaking with Jane Hamsher, who's the founder of FireDogLate.com and one of America's most popular and influential political bloggers. She is also a motion picture producer with such films as Natural Born Killers, Apt Pupil, Permanent Midnight, and From Hell. Her political writing and analysis has appeared in a number of other publications, including the Huffington Post, Alternet, and the American Prospect. She's the author of the best-selling book Killer Instinct, and she's been one of the leading bloggers covering the healthcare reform issue, keeping the Democrats' feet to the fire. And I don't know where to begin, Jane. This is
isn't it?
This is the most convoluted story. As a screenwriter, you would have been kicked out of the producer's office, right?
Oh my gosh, it's long since seemed to be a miniseries. It's like watching Andy Warhol sleep forever. It's endless. But it looks like it's going to get exciting this week. Shall we cut to the chase and see what the impediments are to passing it?
Yes, let's.
Okay. The biggest impediment to passing it right now is pro-choice women. According to Karen Tumulty, Nancy Pelosi thinks that she'll lose about 5 to 6 votes in the House of women who get substantial amounts of their donations from pro-choice women who are just not ready to cast a vote for the biggest blow to a woman's right to choose in 35 years since the Hyde Amendment passed.
And how is the Stupak Amendment, how does it do that? Because I thought...
Stupak is gone, but they've tried to portray Stupak himself. The Stupak language won't be in the House bill. Stupak still says he holds a block of 5 to 6 people that they're trying to peel off. But the Nelson language in the Senate is just as bad or worse than Stupak, and despite all of the attempts to paint it as something else. It allows states to opt out of allowing abortion coverage on the exchange, which is actually in violation of Roe v. Wade. And as George Washington University did an analysis and said that would spill over into the entire insurance market. So that means that it will effectively end insurance coverage for abortion services in some states. In addition, it also has a conscience clause, and it enacts as a federal standard protection for anybody who doesn't want to participate in, offer, or provide abortion services or insurance for abortion services. So it's really, really, really bad. And Barbara Boxer, who has been one of the prime architects, has tried to say it's something it's not. But she, is going to be on the losing end of this one, I think. Pro-choice women, I was up at a big event of donors the other night, and it was a big, big, big brouhaha. They're very, very angry. And you could find people like Lynn Woolsey, like Diana DeGette, Louise Slaughter, all in jeopardy with their biggest supporters over this.
And if there's 5 going to vote against it, it only passed by 5 in the House the last time around, didn't it?
Well, it only passed by 2, I think, but you have to remember that a lot of those votes have disappeared. They won't get Joseph Cowell this time, who was the Republican who voted. They've lost Robert Wexler from Florida. They've lost Neil Abercrombie from Hawaii, who is retiring from the House to run for governor. Eric Massa no longer there. They've lost some on the other side as well, so that's dropped the number they need to carry from 218 to 216. But they still need to pick up votes, and there are some. Most members of Congress, especially those in closed districts, know that if they take this vote, they'll lose their seats. I mean, that really is the state that it's in right now. And you've got members of Congress who are retiring and basically shaking the White House down for appointments afterwards because leadership are forcing them all to take the vote, even though they know it will cost them their seat. I was at dinner last night, and one of my friends compared it to Paths of Glory, where the generals are firing into the bunkers because the soldiers don't want to rush out on the suicide mission. It's the trenches, and leadership is firing on the trenches to get members of Congress to vote for this. So the whisper number on the Hill is 62 now, and the whisper number means how many seats they think they'll lose, and that means they think that they'll lose control of Congress. So the city is sort of in a panic right now.
And they'll lose. They're damned if they do, and they're damned if they don't. If they don't do anything, they will surely lose, right? And if
no, they'll do something. They just don't have to do this. There are many ways to pass health care reform. Their Plan B was actually leaked to the media by Rahm Emanuel on the day of the health care summit, and that was a more scaled back version that doesn't have the mandate. The mandate and it doesn't have the anti-abortion language either. Those are the two killers. The mandate stuff is what people in red districts fear, because having Republicans go on the road and say, hey, the government's going to force you to pay 8% of your income to the private insurance companies that you hate, and then the IRS is going to come and collect the penalties from you if you don't. Like, that's the killer on that side. And on the progressive side, it's the choice stuff. So, the sort of pared down version doesn't have either one of those. But the White House has made the decision that they want to go for broke on this one, and they may very well lose the House over it in the fall. And that's the power struggle that's going on right now.
But if they don't get anything through, then they will really surely lose the House.
Though they could get something through. They could get the pared down measure through. Mm-hmm. That they've been talking about, the Plan B, and I think that would be seen as a victory, probably a bigger victory.
Will they be able to go on the road and sell that? Because nothing is enacted for years, and there'll be no tangible.
Well, that doesn't happen anyway.
Yeah.
Neither bill starts until 2014. But there are things that they could do now. They've been talking about expanding, children's coverage so that children can't be turned down for insurance now. I think that a pared down bill with that would offend fewer people and actually do more good than this entire massive thing that they're planning.
Well, in retrospect, Jane Hamsher, you couldn't have approached this in the worst possible way. Talk about a Shakespearean tragedy here. It's so full of painful ironies. The notion that they lost Ted Kennedy and then they turned it all over to Max Baucus, who diddled around for months and months, waiting for the Republicans to join him, and they never would. And apparently Pelosi kept telling them, then this is never going to happen. But they doggedly stuck to the idea that they'd peel off a couple of Republicans, and they clearly got taken. And then to turn around and then to lose Ted Kennedy's seat, it's extraordinary.
Well, I think that the loss of Ted Kennedy was certainly, a blow. But I will say that I think that the story is slightly different. Mm-hmm. We began the public option campaign back in June of last year, but that was already it already had steam. The public likes the public option. They thought it was a safeguard against insurance companies having unprotected monopolies and the ability to collect money from people without limit. They raised 30%. They raised the rates 30% in California last year. Blue Cross. They can do it again next year. There's nothing in this bill that stops them from doing that. They can keep doing that forever. And so, the safeguard was supposed to be the check, was the public option. Well, if Blue Cross rates get too high, we can go and basically buy into Medicare, or something like it, because the public trusts Medicare. That's something that they understand. And so once that got taken out, that was scary to people. They didn't like it. That bill is not popular. This bill is not popular with the American public right now. They knew from the start that they were going to take that public option out. They knew from the beginning that was not going to be a part of it, but nobody wanted to be responsible for it. And they're still playing that game. Even this week, Dick Durbin was saying the public option will not be in the Senate bill, even though there are plenty of votes for it. They say 51 people now. We needed 60. Now we need 50. We know 51 who've said they would vote for it. Well, we can't have that. So people, landed on him. He goes, all right. If Nancy Pelosi sends me over a bill with a public option, I'll whip for that. And now it's in Nancy Pelosi's, feet. I mean, the president didn't want to get rid of it. Harry Reid didn't want to get rid of it because nobody wants to take the political hit. And basically, they've had to run a campaign for over a year pretending that they were going to do something that they weren't. And they wanted the Republicans for cover. They wanted a Republican. They said, we have to do this in a bipartisan way. And, of course, the Republicans won't, vote for a public option. And, when they were saying we want Republicans to join us on this, that wasn't even code. That was, we're not going to have a public option because no Republican would vote for one. So whenever they were saying that, that's what they wanted. They couldn't get it. They couldn't get a Republican to give them cover. So they have to admit they just never wanted one, even though there are the votes in the House and there are the votes in the Senate, and the president said he'd support one. Now we're getting a bill that doesn't have one, and it's ripping the party apart at its guts.